you guys, there's a Law and Order part in the play I'm directing. Next up, we have Beran.
Hi everyone. This is really awesome. I'm having a great time. I love that Jordan's imagination version of me where we met dogfighting, I fight a Cocker Spaniel. Like I would choose the most beautiful thing as the most fierce thing. I think that's a mistake I would make. Like it's just a beautiful metaphor for art. Like I would choose the thing that would be like, you know, it's the equivalent of like being instead of choosing something that would make a lot of money, like a banker. I would choose. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to do something beautiful, and that will destroy the thing that is much stronger. I have two pieces for you, two short pieces that were food reviews. I sent them in to McSweeney's. McSweeney's used to have like a fake food review section, or it turns out it was a real food review section. So I sent in a piece, and they wrote me back and they're like, damn, we love it. It's just we have an unwritten rule that's not in the submission guidelines that it has to be a piece that, it has to be about a food that people can actually buy and consume. So I rewrote the piece. I rewrote a piece that is about a real food. But I'm reading it because it's the first one that got rejected was about my dad, and I was encouraged to write about my dad because anytime I have this conversation with my friends about who has the craziest family, or like who, oh, my parents are crazy. Since I was a little child, I've always won. I've always just laid down the trump card. And I started to notice that it's unbeatable that I grew up in the craziest household. I usually start with the fact that around 1986 or 1987, my dad sold our house in Roland Park, like a very beautiful house he got for a steal during that 1980 real estate slump. And he didn't want to buy a new house, and he moved us, me and my sisters, into his psychiatry practice. So we lived in the counseling rooms. And he had a huge staff. He had other counselors, secretaries, which we were instructed to lie to and pretend like we had a home somewhere. And so, every time when they would go home at 5 o'clock, we'd be like, oh, bye, we're about to go. And in fact, what would happen is that we would just open all the drawers, all the closets, and everything would be full of the things that you needed for an apartment that had to be hidden from a psychiatry practice. Like cups, plates, bowls, towels, all my toys. And I remember I had these memories of rifling through the files to the back where my laser tag gun was. They were always the locked cabinets. And this fit perfectly with his philosophy, which is he would get furious at me if I ever did not lie to an adult when they spoke to me. If I gave them my real name, or if I gave them any personal information, like where I went to school. So oh, you're so adorable. What's your name? And if I didn't say Jonathan, and they're like, where do you go to school? And I'm like, yeah, just a place. He would take me aside and yell at me because he grew up in communist Czechoslovakia and he loved privacy, and the Cold War never ended, so it was constantly a spy game. So this fit so that that we would lie to all these adults, and that we would have this secret life in his psychiatry office was just part of the thing. So eventually he bought a house, and he bought a house that was, so if you're sitting at his desk at the psychiatry office and you're looking out the window, you can see a house. He bought that house. He started to love the idea of just being, he wanted to be part of the psychiatrist. He didn't really want to move out, but he recognized that we were teenagers by this point. And if we had all the stuff from the huge mansion house, and it was all in storage, so he just filled this tiny little row house with junk and his teenagers. And he put them all in this place. And he just left it there, and it was kind of in bad repair, and so there was this constant idea that he's going to repair the house and he's going to fix it. So flash forward to college, and I'm always sort of afraid. I'm so happy that I'm in college because I'm not wrapped up in these sort of crazy affairs. At the time, he was putting on a production of Richard II for 5 years. So he got money from a drug pharmaceutical company because he's a psychiatrist. They keep taking him to drug dinners, which is what the piece is about. So like, this is outlawed by Clemens. You cannot do this anymore. They said psychiatrists, doctors cannot be taken out to dinner by drug representatives, but we would do it every Friday. And he never prescribed any drugs, he would just collect them all because he was a pack rat, and so he hoarded all the psychiatric drugs and all of his stuff in the tiny little house. And so, yeah, I'm like, Dad, what do you think a production of a play is? Like, what do you've been doing it for 5 years, like, do you think it's like the coming of a new age of man? Do you think suddenly like it's gonna be this like revolutionary event and like one day we're gonna wake up and be wearing Jacobean ruff and like tights and be like concerned about the king? It's just gonna be like this, like what are you preparing for? He would meet every Friday with a group of actors and he hired the actors they paid so like he would just talk about the play and plan it for 5 years. So I thought he was going to wake me up to do this. So he wakes me up, and I'm sleeping on the top of 2 couches, like I'm on the junk, like a cat, you know, like my bedroom is full of junk. And he says, Dale, I have an important task for you. I'm busy. I just got back from college, you know. He said, Dale, it's just one task. You must I'm going to repair the house. The house is going to be fixed. And I'm like, I understand that, Dad, but he's like, I have hired a man. A man will come and he will fix all of this house here. He will do everything. He will fix it. And I'm like, no, Dad. And he's like, okay. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? He says, go downtown to pick him up. His name is Willie. And I'm like, okay. Where does he live? And he said, he does not have a house. Well, he's homeless. No. He got off the boat from Poland last week, and he was wandering off from up Charles Street. He got off at the port, and he went into your sister's coffee shop. He went into Sally's coffee shop, and he said to Sally, his wife, he does not speak English, so his wife said to Sally, we need a job here from Poland. And she thought of me, and I met with him, and I gave him a job. He is going to repair the house. He does everything. So I'm like, well, Dad, I can't pick him up if he doesn't speak English. He says, use your German, use your French. I'm like, Dad, I never learned those languages. I know you would address me in those languages. You expect me to learn them, but I do not know them. You wasted your money. So. You know, very well. I will draw you a picture of him. And he takes a prescription pad, and he takes a pen and he draws a perfect circle. And he draws 2 perfect circles inside the circle. Dots them each with an eye. Then he draws like a little bracket and then another little bracket for the mouth, and then he puts a large mustache on the end. And I said, Dad, that's the Pringles man. He's the Nanny Pringles man. He's not a real man. No, that is what he looks like. So I drive down to like Pulaski Highway, like really, really far. It's late. I was sleeping in the middle of the day. All from college. It's like dark. And I see him. I'm holding the prescription pad up. I see him. He looks exactly like this. He has a round Polish eyes. He's perfectly round. He has an imperial mustache, like a William mustache. He's like 5'10". He's all muscle, a tan muscle. And he's standing with a hammer. And I open the door. I have the pad. And I say, hello. Nods at me. Wie geht's, my friend? Nods. I say, Willie! Bonjour, comment ça va? Bonjour, très bien. He sits in the car. We drive home. He stays there for the next 3 years. We drive home, sleeping in the same spot that my dad woke me on the top of the couch. Okay. That's all past his prologue. All right, here we go. The first one. It's a review of the drug dinner, the pharmaceutical dinner with floor almonds. In order to taste these almonds, you must be on the floor of my father's 16-seater passenger van. He never had 16 passengers in there. He just filled it with trash. At first, I was reluctant. In fact, I just thought of them as garbage along with the pistachio shells and bread crusts. As I cleaned, I only saved the small change, the nickels and pennies. My father looked in, heartbroken. "No," he cried in anger. He was genuinely hurt. "Those are my floor almonds. Don't throw them out. You must try one." I picked one up. It left a perfect almond-shaped indentation in the carpet. I slid it into my mouth. It was the most delicious almond I had ever tasted. It was soft and sweet, raisin, moist inside, but with elements of fresh toast and cherry. My father had been plucking them off the floor and eating them as he drove for several weeks, but somehow, miraculously, they still weren't stale. I had to clean out the van because that night was a drug dinner. This is when a big pharmaceutical company will take you out to an expensive dinner with other psychiatrists. In order to eat at a drug dinner, you have to be a psychiatrist, or like me, the child of a psychiatrist. Actually, in my 10 years of attending them, with the exception of my sister, I've never seen another child of a psychiatrist there. The company will tell you why their drug helps with anxiety, or bipolar disorder, or manic depression, over light mixed greens and cocktails. Over the main course, they will dutifully render the potential side effects while in the same stroke dismissing them. You might notice there's a cosmic balance to the mind. For example, the erectile dysfunction drug has depression side effects, while the antidepressant has sexual side effects. You can choose chicken or steak, or if you're healthy, some green grilled vegetables. There are no other options. Remember to order an expensive drink because they have to pay for it. And you can insult the lecturing psychiatrist with impunity because he's just a hired gun who has betrayed his Hippocratic sensibilities for corporate payday. My father, always contemptuous of the orators, would whisper slanders to me in his thick Czech accent, his mouth full of tender greens. The graph would rise, showing potentially happy people, and he would say in the loudest aside possible to me, "It is the same as heroin." And a moment later, "Absolute poison." Don't ask questions in the end. They only prolong the wait to dessert, usually an outrageously thick chocolate cake, deeper and darker than the most terrifying depression. Every evening, my father would saddle us both up with boxes of sample medications, which, just like the floor almonds, I would end up cleaning out of the van months later when the saturation point was reached. On that particular day, before we left for the drug dinner, I carefully collected all his floor almonds in a plastic bag. I showed him the pile of medications, maybe $10,000 worth, and the bag of floor almonds. "Throw that garbage out," he instructed, pointing at the medication. World War II and then years of Stalin had him hoarding food. In every one of his large American-built cars were blankets, bottled water, cans, and a can opener. "Any day now, it could be complete anarchy," he mused as he peeled open a can of kidney beans in the parking lot, sipping first the juice and then taking gulps of the beans with the Swiss Army knife. "Save those almonds." That's the first piece. And this one is not about my dad. It was the one they accepted. I reviewed Mountain Dew Code Red, which doesn't exist. Much like drug dinners, does not exist anymore for good reason. And it's about teaching. I was teaching middle school at the time, which, as you can imagine, was a disaster. Mountain Dew Code Red. Like its name suggests, I recommend this for emergencies, contingency plans, terrorist strikes, and powerful feelings of revenge and panic. As you may know, it is the most delicious of all the Mountain Dews. Though I love it, I cannot drink it because, mysteriously, it gives me the most vicious stomach aches I have ever experienced. Its soft bubbles become teeth in my viscera. I have only tasted it once since the summer it premiered. Consider the occasion Kamisha Honeydew, the worst of my sixth graders. In the second semester, she shot a laser pointer straight into my right eye. I saw the pale light dance into my sight like a little vision, like an assassination attempt. It exploded into a wondrous spiderweb. While I was gripping my right eye, my left eye found her concealing the device in her coat. She was hanging in the doorway, just dismissed on her way home. As she left, she said something. It was an immense scream. It sounded something like this. I called her mother. Wait 2 weeks, her mother told me, for her medication to kick in. I saw little effect. She started eating incredible amounts of sugar. Each day would bring a new bag filled with candy, Sour Patch Kids, Jolly Ranchers, Twizzler, Pool and Peels, all wrapped in plastic she would shed around her seat. In the back of the class, she would pour out Pepsi to her friends. Their paper cups would unite in toast. I'll bust you so hard I'll knock your brakes off, I overheard Kamisha promising one of her friends or enemies. What does that mean? I asked, my right eye struggling to focus, blurring in and out. You know, they're brakes, Kamisha smiled. They're legs, they can't break and run. I'll hit them so hard. She peeled the SpongeBob off a SpongeBob SquarePants lollipop and put it in her mouth. Just this week, she penned these simple but powerful lines for her spring poem assignment. The fruit are so delicious, it makes me want to be vicious. By the end of that inspired day, she had cracked open the gumball she had been gnawing on. It was the size of her tiny fist. Where did they make them so big? How did she ever get there? Red dye was smeared all over her face. She looked like a Technicolor vampire. Then, as I was beginning my lecture, I saw her do the most extraordinary thing. She removed a Mountain Dew Code Red from her desk. She poured her Mountain Dew Code Red into the crack she had made in her gumball. Sipping like it was champagne. This sickening scene wavered as my right eye blurred. I winked my right eye, then my left eye, quickly, because sometimes that fixed it. After class, I had all her items arrayed on my desk. Kamisha, I said, this is disgusting. Do you want one, Mr. Dale? Do you want a gumball? She dropped a gumball on my desk. It was slightly smaller than hers, the size of an eye. It was blue, the color of my eye. It rolled around uncertainly. I picked it up and bit a big piece out of it and began to chew until the juice grew in my mouth. Kamisha poured me a dram of Mountain Dew Code Red into its insides, and I took a sip. This is really good, I said. My stomach began to purr enraged. She smiled, pleased. I winked back.